So the Prophet ﷺ said, Ya ayyuhal muzammil, qumil layla illa qalila. This was the verse where Qiyamul Layl was made obligatory on the Prophet and his companions, all of them. They had to pray Qiyamul Layl. At night time, they had to pray. So they were told, qumil layla illa qalila. Stand the whole night except little. Nisfahu, half of it. Aw inqus minhu qalilan, or reduce a little bit from it. But they were told to pray. أو زد عليه ورتل القرآن ترتيلا, or increase in that and recite the Quran. So the Prophet ﷺ, for 1 year, 12 consecutive months, he and his companions were what? Were told that they have to pray Qiyamul Layl when Surah Al-Muzammil came down. And then that obligation was removed at the end of the surah. إن ربك يعلم أنك تقوم أدنى من ثلثي الليل ونصفه وثلثه وطائفة من الذين معك. Aisha said that last verse was held back for 12 months. 12 months. They were told to pray Qiyamul Layl in the beginning of the surah. And then that 12 months when it went by, then they were told the obligation of it, it's been lifted from you. And then they were allowed to pray if they wanted to, and leave it if they not wanted to. Scholars then said, did the ayah that came down that uplifted the obligation of Qiyamul Layl, was it also for the Prophet ﷺ, or was it only for the companions? Are we all together? For 12 months they all had to pray, the Prophet and his companions. But then when ayah to takhfif, that ayah that made it easy for them, that abrogated it, was the Prophet also ﷺ, did the abrogation also refer to the Prophet ﷺ or not? Is the question clear? No. I mentioned at the beginning, the Prophet and his companions all had to pray Qiyamul Layl at the beginning of Surah Al-Muzammil, sah? Then I mentioned at the ending of the surah, a verse came down which uplifted that obligation. The question here is, did it uplift the obligation from the Prophet and his companions both, or just the companions? Yeah? So that's one view. One view is that it's only for the companions, and the Prophet had to still pray Qiyamul Layl. Like in Al-Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah, he says that the second view is what I'm content with, which is that the obligation was also lifted from who? The Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, meaning he himself was allowed to not pray. And the obligation was lifted from him alayhi salatu wasalam. That's the view of Al-Imam al-Nawawi. Imam al-Nawawi, he says it here. In his Sharh Sahih Muslim, he says, في قول عائشة رضي الله تعالى عنها ظاهره أنه صار تطوعا في حق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم والأمة فأما الأمة فهو تطوع في حقهم بالإجماع. The Ummah, for it, Qiyamul Layl to be a voluntary act, that's by consensus, there's no difference of opinion. All the scholars believe that the Qiyamul Layl for the believers is what? For us, inshallah ta'ala, it's recommended by consensus. وَأَمَّا النَّبِيُّ, as for the Prophet, he said, فَاخْتَلَفُوا فِي نَسْخِهِ فِي حَقِّهِ, there is a dispute whether it's abrogated for him. وَالْأَصَحُ عِنْدَنَا نَسْخُهُ. And he said, according to me, now he's saying, when he says عِنْدَنَا means, he means the fuqaha shafi'iyah, that it's inshallah ta'ala lifted from the Prophet as well, alayhi salatu wasalam.